The mule beneath Elias Rook did not bolt, it simply stopped breathing. Elias looked toward the ridge where the shot had come from, then followed the thin trail of smoke to a black iron wedge driven into the cliff above him. The bullet had struck the wedge, not him. A shelf of red stone broke loose. Boulders the size of wagons crashed down behind Elias, crushing the trail he had ridden and burying the only easy road back to the open desert. Dust rolled through the canyon like smoke from a burning town. When it cleared, more than 30 Apache riders stood along the rim and the dry wash below. Some held rifles, others held bows. None appeared surprised. At the center waited the man-traders in the territory called Tomas, an aging headman with silver threaded through his hair and a face that seemed carved by sun, grief, and patience. Beside him stood a woman in a dark blue trade-cloth dress, a deerskin belt at her waist, and no fear in her eyes. Tomas pointed toward her. Then he gave Elias a choice no sane man could have expected. Marry the woman this territory has called cursed, or ride east before sunset and never cross our water again. Elias stared at him. The blocked canyon was behind him. Armed riders were in front of him. And the woman at the center of the ultimatum looked less frightened than angry. Not angry at Elias, angry that her life had been spoken of as though it were a toll charged at a gate. Elias removed his weathered hat. "My road belongs to me," he said, "and hers belongs to her." A few rifles lifted. Tomas did not move. Elias kept his eyes on the woman. "I will not purchase passage with another person's future." For the first time her expression changed, only slightly. But the anger in her face gave way to surprise. Elias Rook was 31, quiet, broad-shouldered, and better with frightened horses than comfortable people. He had served as a farrier at a territorial cavalry post until he discovered that an officer was stealing army remounts, falsifying records, and selling weapons across the border. Elias reported him. The witnesses vanished. The evidence disappeared. And Elias was discharged for insubordination. Since then, he had followed hard work from Arizona ranches to New Mexico freight roads, carrying a Winchester, a farrier's hammer, and a brass hoof gauge that had belonged to his father. He had entered the San Andres foothills, tracking 42 stolen cavalry horses. 3 weeks earlier, a flash flood had trapped an Apache boy and a gray mare in an arroyo. Elias tied himself to a cottonwood, cut the mare free, and carried the child through the current. He left before anyone could thank him. The boy returned home with Elias' brass hoof gauge in his pocket. That tool had told Tomas what kind of stranger stood before him. Now the old headman raised one hand and the rifles around Elias lowered. The woman stepped forward. "My name is Mara," she said in clear English, "and I did not ask my father to bring you here." "I believe that," Elias answered. Tomas's gaze moved between them. Mara had once been promised to a young leader from another band. The marriage was meant to protect winter grazing and keep peace between families surrounded by settlers, soldiers, miners, and speculators. 4 days before the ceremony, the man vanished. He returned months later wearing a silver watch, carrying a new rifle, and scouting for a land company. To hide his betrayal, he claimed Mara brought death wherever she went. Her mother had died in a fever season. Her brother had been killed by cattle thieves. Lightning had burned a shelter after one of her visits. 3 unrelated tragedies became one poisonous story. Soon, people who had shared her fire would not sit beside her. Suitors disappeared. Mara called it cowardice. Tomas called it a wound that killed without drawing blood. But he had another reason for stopping Elias. White survey stakes now marked the springs, grazing basin, and canyon road as company property. The deeds had been signed by men who never owned the land. Within 10 days, hired deputies were supposed to remove every Apache family near the water. Mara could read English contracts and draw maps from memory. For 6 months she had copied freight ledgers, survey books, and army receipts. She believed Elias's stolen horses belonged to the same scheme. Tomas believed a former cavalry farrier could expose it. He also believed marriage would force Elias to stay when danger came. Elias understood the old man's fear. He still rejected the bargain. "A rope can keep a horse from leaving," Elias said. "It cannot make the horse trust the hand holding it." Mara looked at her father. Tomas's jaw tightened, not from insult but recognition. Before he could answer, a young rider appeared on the rim, his horse white with sweat. He shouted down in Apache. Every face in the canyon changed. The company men had arrived early. They were not carrying eviction papers. They were burning the winter stores. The canyon erupted into motion. Riders wheeled toward a hidden trail. Women gathered children. Older men pulled rifles from wrapped hides beneath a rock shelf. Elias could have remained where he was. He could have waited for the path behind him to be cleared, then ridden east and never returned. Instead, he asked Mara one question. Who leads them? She named a former cavalry quartermaster called Silas Creed. Elias felt the years close around his chest. Creed was the officer Elias had reported, the man who had stolen army horses, the man who had erased witnesses, and the man who had arranged the ambush that killed Elias's younger brother outside Fort Stanton. Elias swung into the saddle. Then your fight and mine are the same fight. Mara mounted a compact black mare. No, she said, they touch. That is not the same thing. Then she rode past him. It was the first lesson she gave him. It would not be the last. By the time they reached the settlement, smoke had swallowed the lower canyon. Creed's riders were burning corn racks, driving off horses, and firing into the air. They wore mismatched deputy badges and cavalry coats stripped of insignia. Elias understood the plan: create panic, provoke return fire, leave bodies in government coats, then tell the territory the Apache had attacked lawful officers. He dropped behind a low wall and watched the wind push smoke toward the children's trail. Mara was already tying wet cloth across two girls' mouths. Elias pointed to an irrigation ditch. Break the bank, flood the burning stores, Mara shouted instructions. 6 people attacked the packed mud with shovels, antlers, and bare hands. Elias fired twice. One bullet shattered a bridle ring and dropped a raider's saddle. The second struck a rifle barrel and spun it from another man's grip. Mara cut the ditch wall. Brown water rushed beneath the corn racks. Steam exploded upward. Families dragged the surviving food clear. Then a wagon rolled loose and pinned an elderly man beneath one wheel. Mara vanished into the smoke. 3 seconds later, she emerged, pulling him by the shoulders while 2 children pushed from behind. The woman called Cursed had saved 4 lives before the flames were out. Silas Creed appeared through the haze on a pale horse, older, heavier, still sitting the saddle as though every creature beneath him had been purchased. Well, he called. The army's honest little horseshoer. Elias raised his Winchester. Creed pulled a boy against his chest and pressed a revolver to the child's neck. The rifle lowered. Creed ordered his men to retreat with every horse they could drive. Then he looked at Mara. I know what you copied. Bring me the pages before moonrise, or I return with enough badges to bury this canyon under the law. He released the boy and rode away. The cost appeared slowly. 3 people wounded, half the winter food ruined. 27 horses gone, including the gray flood mare, and the teams needed to haul water. Tomas had taken a bullet along the ribs. Mara cleaned the wound with steady hands. Not cursed, not helpless, and not waiting to be rescued. That evening, Tomas called Elias and Mara into a shelter lit by one oil lamp. He placed Elias's brass hoof gauge on a blanket, then apologized to his daughter in Apache. When he finished, Mara closed her eyes. Tomas turned to Elias. I tried to build a bridge by tying 2 people to it. That would not make a bridge. It would make prisoners. The marriage demand was withdrawn. Elias could leave at dawn. Mara could choose any future she wanted. For the first time since the canyon closed behind him, Elias was free. He stayed. Creed would return, and Mara's 6 copied ledger pages could destroy the land company if they reached a judge first. The records showed payments for horses never delivered to the cavalry, rifles declared damaged and resold, and survey crews paid from an army account. Most damning, Creed had purchased the water rights months before the supposed sellers signed the deed. The nearest judge sat 80 miles north in Las Palomas. A large escort would be treated as a war party. Elias proposed that he and Mara travel as a horse doctor and his assistant, hiding the pages in a medicine case. At sunrise, Mara chose the black mare. Elias chose a long-legged bay gelding. The boy Elias had saved returned the brass hoof gauge. Elias closed the child's fingers around it. Keep it until I come back, and if you do not, then keep it until someone needs a reason to believe a stranger. They rode north. For 2 days, Mara showed Elias how much life existed in country he had called empty. She found water under limestone, food among thorns, and riders beyond a ridge by watching ravens circle. At night, they hid small fires inside shallow pits. Beneath a sky crowded with stars, Mara asked why Elias had never married. He said he had believed a settled life came after justice was finished. Is justice ever finished? No. Then that belief is a clever way to remain alone. He asked why she still wanted trade with settlements that had cheated her people. Because isolation is another road someone else can choose for you. If honest people abandon trade, thieves become the only bridge. A bridge can burn, Elias said. So can a house. People still build houses. By noon the next day, they reached the abandoned mission at Dry Bell. Fresh hoofprints marked the graveyard wall. Too late. Riders rose from behind the ruins. One shot tore through Elias's saddlebag. Another killed the babe beneath him. Mara turned toward the arroyo, but a rope caught the black mare's legs. Horse and rider fell together. Creed's men surrounded them and cut open the medicine case. Nothing. Mara had moved the pages while Elias slept. Creed struck Elias with a revolver, then ordered Mara searched. She slowly drew one folded sheet from her belt and held it over the cooking fire. Let him go. Creed stepped closer. Mara dropped the page. A rider crushed the flame. Only one corner burned. Creed unfolded a list of false horse purchases and assumed the remaining evidence was still on her, exactly as Mara intended. He took her and left Elias beside the dead horse. 2 riders carried a forged warrant to Las Palomas accusing Elias of murdering the survey crew. By sunset, a posse found him. The warrant carried a copied judicial seal. An Apache-marked saddle had been planted nearby. The dead horse had been shot with an army cartridge. Every clue pointed in the same direction. That was what made it false. Truth is rarely so tidy. The posse dragged Elias into Las Palomas behind a wagon. The town had already heard that Apache raiders were preparing an attack. Windows were boarded. Rifles filled the hotel. Men who had never left town spoke confidently about people they had never met. The deputy threw Elias into a cell. You can explain it to the judge. The judge whose seal is on the warrant. The deputy looked away. The real judge was missing. Creed owned the jailer, the deputy, and by morning he intended to own the story. Alone in the cell, Elias felt revenge becoming easier than justice. If Creed entered, Elias wanted no trial. He wanted his brother's death returned in one bullet. Then he remembered Mara in the canyon while 2 men discussed her future as if she were land on a deed. No one owned another person's road. Hatred could own one too, narrowing every choice until violence looked like the only direction left. Across town, Creed held Mara in the old freight office. On the desk lay the surviving ledger page. Beside it sat Mateo, the man once promised to Mara, wearing a company coat and the silver watch he had received for betraying her family. Time had not made him powerful. It had only made him expensive. Creed ordered him to translate. Mara answered in English. You never needed him for my words, only for his obedience. She asked Mateo what his so-called good fortune had purchased, routes to the springs, names of families, and hiding places used during raids. Mateo told her to stop. Does the watch still keep time when you hear those children crying? Creed struck the desk. Mateo flinched. Mara understood then. He was not Creed's equal. He was a witness who called his cage a career because the bars were polished. That did not excuse him. But it gave her an opening. She told Creed the missing pages were beneath a white cross stone at Dry Bell. He rode out with 6 men and left Mateo to guard her. When the door closed, Mara spoke quietly. Your lie did not only shame me, it taught everyone that you could be bought. Mateo stared at the watch. You wanted a larger road, she said. Look where it led. He removed the watch, set it on the desk, and unlocked the door. Mara did not thank him. Gratitude comes after truth. Bring Creed's original account book to Las Palomas. Testify where people know your name. Mateo led her to a hidden stable. The stolen gray flood mare stood among Creed's horses. Mara mounted bareback, cut every halter, and drove the herd through the rails. Company guards scattered. Mara rode for the jail. A small hand appeared at the rear cell window. The Apache boy Elias had saved squeeze between the bars. In his fist was the brass hoof gauge, one edge filed thin enough to fit the lock, a reason to believe a stranger had become a key. Elias escaped through the feed passage and reached the street as Mara arrived on the gray mare. Mateo followed with Creed's original account book beneath his coat. The town deputy raised his rifle. Sheriff Ada Bell stepped from the hotel doorway and aimed first. She was 60, narrow as a fence post, and had spent 20 years learning the difference between law and men who merely wore it. She had returned with the missing judge. Mateo laid the account book on a water trough and confessed before ranchers, army couriers, and the judge. He named the false deeds, stolen horses, staged raids, and weapons sales. Then he revealed Creed's final plan. At dawn, a passenger train carrying settlers and soldiers would cross the Ghost Lantern trestle. Creed had planted dynamite beneath the rails. After the wreck, his men would scatter Apache arrows and stolen belongings around the bodies. The militia would march into the foothills by noon. The account book proved fraud. It did not stop dynamite. Ghost Lantern was 26 miles away. The train would reach it in less than 3 hours. Mara looked at Elias. "You can barely sit a horse. I can sit one longer than a train can wait." They rode. The shortest route crossed a dry lake bed where moonlight turned the salt white. Creed's men had blocked the main trail, so Mara led the riders through black volcanic gullies no company map recorded. Behind them came Sheriff Bell, Mateo, 3 ranchers, 2 Apache scouts, and an army courier with red signal flags. For the first time, people who distrusted one another rode toward the same danger, not as friends, not yet. A mile from the trestle, rifle fire flashed from the rocks. Sheriff Bell's horse went down. Mateo pulled her clear while an Apache scout circled behind the gunmen and forced them from cover. Elias and Mara reached the ridge. Below them, Ghost Lantern Trestle crossed a gorge of pale stone and dead cottonwoods. Creed knelt beneath the rails beside a coil of fuse. Far away, a train whistle sounded. Mara pointed to a narrow path, too steep for horses. Elias took his farrier's hammer. "Then we walk." They descended as Creed lit the fuse. Elias dropped the final 10 feet and nearly collapsed. Creed fired. The bullet tore through Elias's coat. Elias threw the hammer. It struck Creed's wrist and knocked the revolver into the gorge. Mara ran for the fuse, but a company rider caught her. She drove her heel into his knee, twisted free, and drew her knife. The flame raced toward the dynamite. Creed drove Elias against a support beam and closed both hands around his throat. "You could have lived quietly," Creed hissed. "So could you." Elias struck the wounded wrist and reached the fallen hammer. For one breath, he held the killing blow he had imagined for years. One strike could pay for his brother. Elias lowered the hammer. Creed lunged. The rotted plank beneath him broke, and he fell through the framework, catching a crossbeam with both hands. Elias could have watched him drop. Instead, he grabbed Creed's arm. "Why?" Creed gasped. "Because you do not choose my road either." Elias pulled him onto the beam. Above them, Mara cut the fuse less than a foot from the dynamite. But the train was still coming. The engineer could not see the broken rail beyond the curve. Mara climbed onto the trestle and waved her dark blue shawl. Too small, too dark. Mateo reached the ridge and saw the silver watch still in his hand. For years it had proved what he had sold. He smashed the glass, tore out the polished face, wrapped it in his white company shirt, and set the cloth on fire. A bright flame rose above the curve. The engineer saw it. Steel shrieked. Sparks poured from the wheels. The locomotive slowed and stopped 6 yards from the broken rail. No explosion came. No train fell. No false war began. Soldiers climbed down. Ranchers reached the bridge. Apache riders appeared along the ridge. Sheriff Bell placed Silas Creed in cuffs and delivered him alive to the judge whose seal he had forged. That mattered to Elias. Not because Creed deserved mercy, because the truth deserved witnesses. At sunrise, the account book was opened on the station platform. The judge compared the signatures. The army couriers identified the remount numbers. Ranchers recognized horses they had been paid to declare dead. Mateo named every company man who had helped stage the raids. Mara produced the remaining copied pages from the one place Creed had never thought to search. They had been stitched inside the black mare's saddle blanket with horsehair thread. 6 pages. 42 stolen cavalry horses, 11 illegal weapons sales, 3 forged water deeds, and 1 payment ledger connecting Silas Creed to every act. The land claim collapsed before noon. The militia order was canceled. The springs were placed under temporary territorial protection until a formal hearing could be held with Apache representatives present. It was not perfect justice. No paper could return Mara's brother. No sentence could restore the years stolen by rumor. No judge could make the territory honest with one ruling. But the raid that was supposed to begin a war ended by exposing the men who had tried to manufacture one. Weeks passed. The stolen horses were returned. The winter stores were replaced with supplies purchased using seized company money. Sheriff Bell sent 2 deputies to guard the springs, but Tomas insisted that Apache riders patrol beside them. At first, both groups kept their hands near their weapons. Then the work became ordinary. They repaired fences, marked safe crossings, shared water during long watches. Trust did not arrive like sunrise. It arrived like a trail, one set of tracks at a time. Mara began traveling twice a month to Las Palomas with hides, woven goods, medicinal plants, and written orders from families who had been cheated by traders. She refused to let merchants speak only to Elias. She set prices herself. She corrected weights. She kept 2 ledgers, one in English and one using her own system of symbols and memory marks. Elias opened a small farrier shed beside the trading room. He repaired ranch saddles, shod army horses, and taught 3 boys how to recognize a cracked hoof before it crippled an animal. People who came expecting a curiosity found a business. People who came expecting submission found rules. No whiskey sold near the springs. No weapon traded without a recorded name. No debt charged to a family without the terms read aloud. Within a year, theft along the canyon road fell sharply. Not because everyone became good, because dishonest men no longer controlled every crossing between communities. Tomas visited often. He never again spoke of marriage as duty. One evening, while Elias repaired a child's saddle under the cottonwoods, the old man placed the brass hoof gauge on the workbench. The boy had decided Elias had returned for good. Tomas watched Mara inside the trading room, arguing with a freight owner who had tried to change a price after shaking hands. She was never cursed, Tomas said. I knew too. Elias looked at him. Tomas's voice became quiet. Knowing a lie is false does not always make a father brave enough to stand against everyone repeating it. That was the hardest confession the old man ever made. Elias did not comfort him. Some truths should remain sharp, but he said, "You stood eventually." Tomas nodded. Eventually is late. Yes, sometimes late is still before never. Mara stepped outside. The freight owner followed, carrying his own boxes after losing the argument. She watched her father and Elias speaking. "What are you two deciding for me now?" "Nothing," Elias said. Tomas smiled. "That is what we are learning." Months later, after the first summer rain darkened the desert and filled the canyon with the smell of wet stone, Elias asked Mara to ride with him to the place where the rockslide had once trapped him. The boulders had been cleared. The trail was open. Mara dismounted beside the black iron wedge still buried in the cliff. Elias removed his hat. He had faced gunfire with less fear. "I will not ask your father for your road," he said. "And I will not offer you mine as though it were better." Mara waited. "I am asking whether we should build one that belongs to both of us." She looked toward the eastern desert, then back through the canyon toward the springs, the trading room, the children's ponies, and the people whose lives had become entangled with theirs. "On one condition," she said. Elias swallowed. "What condition?" "You never again use a speech that long to ask a simple question." He laughed. It surprised both of them. Then Mara took his hand. Their wedding took place in early autumn. There were Apache songs, a territorial judge, bread from Las Palomas, roasted meat from the canyon, and no attempt to pretend the two worlds had become one. They had not. They remained different. That was not failure. Peace did not require people to erase themselves. It required them to stop using difference as permission for theft, fear, and control. Mateo attended from a distance. He had testified against the company and accepted exile from the people he had betrayed. He sent no gift except the melted silver from the watch, shaped by a blacksmith into 2 plain buckles for the trading post ledgers. Mara used one. The other remained empty, a reminder that confession could begin repair, but could not demand forgiveness. Years later, travelers crossing the San Andres foothills stopped at a place called Open Road Station. They found water sold at a fair price, horses treated before coin was discussed, and disputes written down before anger could rewrite them. Children from the canyon and the town learned numbers at the same long table where Mara once spread the stolen ledgers. Above the door hung an old brass hoof gauge. Most visitors thought it was only a tool. The people who knew the story understood what it had become. A stranger had once used it to save a frightened horse. A child had used it to open a jail, and an old man had returned it when trust no longer needed to be forced. The canyon had begun with a road taken from Elias beneath falling stone. It ended with 2 people choosing one together.